Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Michael Van Paris. He is the president of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau. And Michael Van Paris sounds very international, but he'll probably tell you he's an honest-to-goodness local guy. It's his first time on the show, so first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
For those who don't know, what is the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau?
Well, we actually were filling a void here in Connecticut. There really hadn't been a concentrated effort of representing the entire state, going after meetings and sporting event types of business. So we go out of Connecticut basically and look for business to bring in here. So it's really people that earn money somewhere else, they come here and they spend their money and their tax dollars here in Connecticut in hotels, meeting venues, sporting venues, restaurants, etc.
So it's a way to generate revenue for the state of Connecticut in the realm of sporting events, activities, and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And so this hasn't existed in the state up until the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau came about?
No, there have been a lot of changes over the years with the state. There were smaller convention bureaus in different regions of the state. And there's a little confusion too because we only do the meeting side and the sporting side. We still have 3 tourism districts within the state. So what we really do is concentrate on the meetings business and the sporting events, and that wasn't being really represented throughout the United States. Nobody knew that Connecticut was really open and ready for business.
Does this kind of organization, does this exist in other states too, maybe under different names, obviously not Connecticut, but do they they have the same sort of mission statement?
We're unique.
Are you really?
Definitely unique,
Yeah.
yes. Most destinations are destination driven specifically by a city. We actually evolved out of the Greater Hartford Convention and Visitors Bureau prior to becoming the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau. So yes, we're still kind of the stepchild, I guess, when we go representing, because people are surprised when we don't say we're just Hartford or we're Stamford or we're Mystic, and we represent the whole state. But again, it's a small state.
Yeah, and there's certain parts of the state where it might be difficult for people to imagine having some sort of event that could be big enough to justify a real revenue generator. Like you could understand Hartford, East Hartford has a huge 40,000 seat stadium. You know, the bigger cities have arenas and things like that. But, you know, what about other parts of the state where it's mostly rural? What can you do there?
Sporting events happen everywhere. I mean, all you really need to have is a field, and we bring events there. So we go after mom and pop type of events.
Okay.
So they could be high school or younger groups.
And there's one of those in every town, you know, a high school field, little league field, anything, right?
Absolutely. And it's those soccer moms, if we want to use soccer as an example, that need the help of our expertise to be able to help them put that whole event together. So we don't just book a hotel or book a venue. We're there to help them with all of the other aspects that they may need. And it really depends, again, on the kind of meeting that we're talking about. Some people need very little help. Some people need a lot. They need, first of all, to know where to get the permits, even to utilize the fields. But then there's hotels. There's maybe transportation that they need to figure out. They may need to want to put the whole group together for a meal somewhere. So all of those little details, we step in and we help.
There's a lot of things that could fall through the cracks, aren't there? And like a key thing that you mentioned there is you could be just there to help somebody get started. Just steer them in the right direction and maybe they could take it from there. But sometimes if someone wants to organize something, it could appear to them to be so daunting that they wouldn't even know where to begin, right?
Exactly. And sometimes that would frighten people away from actually going after trying to bring something here to Connecticut. And we actually have awards every single year that are called Bring It Home Awards. And those are people that have actually kind of stepped up to the plate and said, we really want to bring this organization to Connecticut. They may belong to a church, they may belong to a special association, or a club that they belong to, but they all grow bigger. You know, outside of Connecticut, those clubs are regional or they're national. Churches, obviously, can bring people in from all over the United States. So we actually recognize these people once a year and give them out awards and say, thank you very much for bringing this piece of business to Connecticut.
And that really brings a to more of a hometown feel? Because, you know, you're talking
Absolutely.
about individuals as opposed to the state did this, you know, individuals in their hometown, especially if it's a smaller event, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the good part, my sales team, you know, we do have an office in Hartford, but a lot of the sales team actually work out of their homes in different parts of the state. So they're really bringing that down home kind of a feel, and they've got those affiliations and relationships already built.
So you could have someone maybe, for example, in the southeastern section of Connecticut, maybe they have to go to the office in Hartford on occasion, but they can do a lot of their work from their house, on their computer, on their
Exactly.
phone, and organize from there.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
everything is virtual practically these
That's right.
days. I mean, we all have our iPhones, we have computers that we can use, laptops,
And they
our
all have
iPads,
Skype on them and
Skype,
yeah.
you name it, we use it all.
And one of the things that when you introduced yourself and when I introduced you at the beginning of the show, president of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau, and about how it's changed, people might not realize that it's not necessarily a state department. You're actually a nonprofit, right?
We are a nonprofit. We do receive a portion of our funding from the state, actually out of those tourism dollars that come in every single year. So we really want everybody to always push and say, yes, we really do need those dollars. And what's really excellent about our organization is we belong to an organization of all CVBs belong to the mother association called DMAI.
And that's a national thing?
It's
Yeah.
national. But they produce an economic qualifier. So it shows really exactly what kind of dollars we're talking about when we bring a piece of business to Connecticut. And we had one made specifically for the state of Connecticut. Again, a lot of people do it by the city or the region. Hawaii and Connecticut are the only two that have them for the whole
What's the
state.
reason for that? Because Hawaii is certainly it's its own animal. So what was Connecticut's decision for doing it statewide as opposed to on I guess, a municipality basis?
Well, I think there were obviously financial reasons. We can do basically what a lot of smaller agencies can do with one bureau.
Is it
and
because
we
it's
can
a
go
small
there and
state?
represent. I think it's really more that it's a small state than anything.
You mentioned the E word, and that is economy. And whenever you're talking about a nonprofit, you always have to ask the question about in the recession that we've been in for a number of years, how that affected you as a nonprofit. It had to have been a little difficult.
Well, fortunately, we started last year, as I said.
And so you started when basically we're coming out of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's a lot easier now to be able to talk to people, and the numbers are growing of events that come, and also the number of people that come to the events. So we are definitely seeing an uptick in business for the hotels and the venues around the state.
So I want to give you the opportunity to kind of brag a little bit, because I want to get into the big time stuff. Connecticut, specifically East Hartford, has a 40,000 seat stadium that was built for UConn football and other events too. But that's the main primary tenant. And I would imagine the state would like to utilize the facilities, as a way to generate revenue as many times as possible when their primary tenant isn't using the facility. So, there have been big events. There are concerts that occur there. You just had, big time soccer there. The U.S. men's national team, part of CONCACAF, did their couple of Gold Cup games there. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you could say CONCACAF, because it's been tough for me to get out also.
Just say soccer, that's all.
But really, that brought 40,000 people to East Hartford on a weekday night.
Amazing.
That filled hotels, that filled restaurants, and those are the big events that we actually are associated with. We have another one coming in a couple of weeks called USA Gymnastics. We had that here probably 3 years ago. This is actually going to be bigger than the last time.
And where's that going to be at?
That'll be at the Excel Center as well as the Convention Center in Hartford. But they bring a lot of people to the state, and it's amazing. Hartford is our capital city, but during the week, unless it's lunch hour, sometimes you don't see a lot of people on the streets. They're all in the office.
This isn't like
buildings.
Manhattan, where it's just nonstop people.
Exactly. But when USAG is in town, it's like, wow, we're kind of like a big city. So it's really very interesting. And I think USAG, as an example, really loves to come to Hartford, Greater Hartford, and the reason is that they could go to Dallas and they could be just, they're just one of hundreds of different groups that are actually in the state at the same time, in the city at the same time, where when they come here, they're really the big fish in a small pond. everybody knows that they're in town, from the hotels to the restaurants, even the locals. We
Right.
make sure that there's a lot of information out there.
Which, that's interesting. They can be the only game in town, and that's advantageous for them. Now, Connecticut, Hartford, we'll call it a medium-sized city that's sort of halfway between Boston and New York. So, again, is it advantageous to not be in a big city, Boston or New York, and be kind of right in the middle in a city like Hartford, again, where they can sort of be one of the few only games in town, and the publicity can be just about them, right?
Exactly.
And maybe it's a little bit cheaper than it is to maybe be in a big city like Boston or New York?
It's usually less expensive,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, October is a pretty tough month for people coming here, only because it's so beautiful and so popular that you're not going to find
Fall.
great deals.
Right.
Exactly. But the whole state of Connecticut, I mean, we are centered right between these two big monster cities.
Very close, driving distance,
Absolutely. But they get that small town feel, they get the recognition that they deserve, and we are still one of the few cities that can say how many people we have so close to us. I mean, we have 23.5 million people within a 2 hours drive of Connecticut. That a lot of cities, when they go out and they're saying, oh, we've got this and we can have this many people here, they're usually saying we have, let's say, 12 million people within a 2 hours flight. So, I
Right.
mean, for us to say drive, people can get here very, very easily.
You've got an international airport in the city of Hartford, or just north of Hartford. The state is small enough where the entire state is its own TV media market. It's not like like a bigger city where, in the state, this city is its own TV market, Houston's a market, Dallas is a market. In Connecticut, it's Hartford, New Haven, it's all of the state. It's one TV market. So everybody in the state can see the big event if it happens to be on TV.
Definitely.
And how about for transportation purposes? I mentioned the airport, but train, bus, getting to any big events that you guys might have helped cultivate to bring here. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, big events we definitely work on, but we really work on those single small events that are happening in single property hotels throughout the state of Connecticut. I mean, that's really kind of our task and the direction that we move in. So we utilize all the airports. I mean, if we're in Fairfield County and we're representing those hotels, they can come in and out of New York just as easily, or White Plains. If we're over here in this part of the state, we of course use Bradley, but there's also the option of going to Providence and using their airport. So we're really fortunate for the number of airports that we have supporting a small state like Connecticut.
Yeah, where we tape this in New London, southeastern Connecticut, sometimes it's as easy to drive to Providence as it is to Hartford as far as the airport goes. But for the purposes of wanting to generate revenue for the state of Connecticut, wouldn't you want them to go to Hartford instead, though?
Well, I guess I want them to. I mean, yes, we'd see money from cabs and things like that, but they're already buying the ticket somewhere else. So
That's a good
we
point.
want to get the dollars when they get here. So
Right.
they're going to stay in our hotels and pay that hotel tax. They're going to go to the restaurants. I mean, the revenue that we derive out of the business that we're driving here, we're still finalizing our numbers for the balance of the year. But when I finished our last report in April, where I was talking about that economic qualifier,
Yeah.
we are returning $5.30 for every dollar that the state invests in us.
No
So
kidding.
we're really a moneymaker. We actually are paying for ourselves and also spreading that wealth around the state.
Could you argue then to the state that, if they should happen to fund more money, that you could generate even more money back to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We do this with a relatively limited staff at this point. The more people we have, the more doors we can knock on, the more events we can represent people. I mean, there is probably a point where it balances out, but we're definitely not there yet. We could always use more.
When people purchase things online, whether it be tickets or anything like that, does that not help you out because they're not paying the tax some way, or obviously you'd rather have them pay in the venues themselves? Or
Right. I don't know the answer to that, honestly. So that's not probably in our economic qualifier when we talk about tickets specifically,
But it is,
unless it's
like,
something they buy here.
it's a fact of life, so you accept it for whatever, for
Right.
whatever reason it is. Talk to me about the sort of the day-to-day duties that the president of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau does specifically. It's probably not the same on any given day, is it?
It definitely is not the same. I do travel a lot. We are representing Connecticut throughout the United States at different trade shows.
So you're out of the state.
Out of the state.
Yeah.
A lot of the sales people that I have are gone a lot of the time because we're actually out there talking to meeting planners and decision makers about bringing their business here to Connecticut. And to do that, you have to get there and start talking to them. So travel's a lot of it. I travel a lot in the state. It's a small state. It sounds like a small state, but I think just this month alone, I traveled over 1,600 miles in Connecticut.
So you have an office in your car as well as the Hartford office, right?
Probably bigger in my car than in Hartford.
That's right, yeah.
Absolutely. But I also, I live up in Litchfield County, so I can work out of that area as well. But it really depends. We're out meeting people. We're out talking about the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau. I have salespeople that work specific markets, like the association market, or what we call the SMERF market, which is the social, military, education, religious, and fraternal market. So there's somebody working that. A corporate market, 2 people working in the sports market. So they're all out going after those specific types of business.
How's corporate dollars as far as incoming? Is that increased? How's that doing for you?
It's never really been a real major focus of any CVB, honestly, because corporate business is usually much more short-term than association or SMERF things. But we do concentrate on corporate because there are certain areas of the state that need that corporate business, specifically here in the southeast part of the state. They can do great on weekends, but they need the help during the middle of the week, so we focus on corporate specifically for this part of the state.
You do any work with the casinos at all? In any?
Absolutely.
Oh, you do?
Mohegan is a member of ours. So we're out there. We've done different shows together with them, and we're representing. They've got large meeting space. So when we're out there talking about a bed and breakfast, or talking about a corporate big box hotel in a city, or casino as an option, there are a lot of different flavors that we've got here in Connecticut.
Now, you mentioned that they're a member of yours. Does that mean a lot of organizations, businesses, is it your goal to have them become a member of your organization? How does that work?
It's membership driven, and that specifically the state wanted to see that there was a partnership between us and our members, and that's the reason that we actually did that. So our hotels, the majority of all the hotels in the state, at least the larger meeting space hotels or hotels that can take advantage of sporting events, are members of ours at this point, and we work with them to make sure that they are getting proper representation out there. Sometimes we do what we call co-op marketing, where we'll go to a venue, let's say New York City, and we bring about 20 of our hotels and or meeting venues with us, and we'll host a reception with decision makers and say, come to Connecticut. When we go to New York, they always go, wow, we always just went to New Jersey. We didn't think about Connecticut, because we really haven't had that representation out there.
You know, someone in New York, if they wanted to go to a casino per se, it's quicker for them to drive to Mohegan than it is for them to go to Atlantic City, and I'm sure that's a lot of them didn't realize that too.
Absolutely.
Not that that has anything to do with your thing, but still, that's another example of maybe somebody not being informed about Connecticut.
Right. I mean, you have to touch someone at least 7 or 8 times for them to remember it, think about it, and that's what we're doing. We're touching these decision makers as often and as frequently as we can, so they'll remember the next time they need to book something to call us. Aside
from the funding that the state gives you, is basically membership from the organizations that are that are members of the Connecticut Conventions and Sports Bureau, is that basically your main revenue?
Yes, those are the 2 main funding sources that we have. We have others that we can develop some dollars from, but those are the 2 biggest.
Is the Bureau's job different depending on the time of year it is? Like, for example, you mentioned that in the fall it's tough to get a good deal here because it's so popular, and this is the place to be in the fall, beautiful New England. Right. Depending on the time of year, is your job different, or anybody on your staff?
I think we sell differently 4 different times of the year. Talking to certain groups that would actually consider coming to Connecticut in January and February is different than talking to a group that wants to come in October, September, November. So we sell differently probably, and we sell differently to the groups that we know that would be interested in coming at different times of the year.
Yeah. How far in advance if you're, doing a big event, like for example the CONCACAF thing that just happened, for them, they kind of know way in advance. But when you decide that you want to take a stab at this, how far in advance do you have to work at something of that magnitude?
Well, it depends again, but specifically for sporting events, a lot of times my sports salespeople are working behind the scenes way before our hotel members know that we're even doing it, because we really have to establish the venue that they're going to have these events at before we can go out to the hotels and say, we need your rooms, we need your restaurants, etc. So it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it really depends. Sometimes it's very short term as well.
Is it an advantage to be in a state like Connecticut where there isn't, like, you've got the WNBA down in the casino at Mohegan Sun, but there isn't really major pro sports team in the state. UConn is probably your biggest, and the state seems to rally around that. Do you think it's an advantage for us as opposed to like a big city, a Boston, New York, a Dallas, or somebody like that, for us not to have like some kind of a major pro sports team in the state?
Well, I don't know if it's an advantage. I think it's always great to have the pro sporting teams that we could have here in Connecticut.
Hartford Whalers used to be here.
Right. Exactly. But I think because we're so versatile, and we really do have a lot of different types of sporting events that are taking place every single day. I mean, beyond the soccer, the basketball, there's the softball. We have a young women's ice hockey event that happens the week between Christmas and New Year's. It generates approximately 8,000 room nights for Connecticut at one of our quietest times of the year. So there are different types of sporting events, kind of like there are different types of associations that you can go after and help to develop.
It's interesting because of what you do, how you will look at something. You will look at it based on, rooms booked because of what you do for a living. Depending on your perspective, really, those are the colored glasses that you wear, and you can tell by, a particular event, like, how much hotel space is needed, how much you think, will be spent in restaurants. Now, restaurants are probably a part of members too, because they take advantage of events that happen, right?
Absolutely. It's great to be able to have actually as many restaurants as we can within our membership. It's not an expensive ordeal for a restaurant to be a member. We really want them because we want to be able to, when we have our hotels listed on our website, which is ctmeetings.org, we want to have, when they go and look at the maps and they see where a hotel is on that map, we want to have a lot of dots around it that show the different restaurants that are available.
I want you to get into a little bit more about your website and some of the things. We already know, the restaurants and hotels that are on there, but when people go to, it was at ctmeetings.org, what can they find, what can they do on the website?
Yeah, well, it's a treasure trove of information, actually, because there's an area where we talk about hotels. So let's say a meeting planner in Chicago, Illinois thinks they want to have a meeting here in Connecticut, but they don't really know much about it. They've heard about Connecticut through us or our website or whatever, but they could actually go and drop information that they have about their meeting into our website, and we can populate that through and show different areas of the state that could host their size of a group. We can show it based on their hotel needs for the size of the number of rooms that they need, the size of meeting space that they need. So we've really broken it down so that they can really get the information that they need. We also have information about the state. We also have listings of all of our sales teams so that they know who they'd want to contact about their specific type of an event that they're bringing here. It's a pretty varied website. It took a year to actually get up and running and built, and we're still fine-tuning it today.
You guys plugged into social media?
We are, but again, because we're small. Yeah. I mean, our organization is 10 people,
and
including
new,
a bookkeeper.
Right. In the grand scheme of things.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're working through it, and it's being developed, but it's not something that I've got somebody to work on specifically every single day.
But social media is where it's at, and it's it's a huge for networking. So I mean, you want to get on that soon.
Absolutely.
And so that just another way to get the word out.
We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page. So we're there. I just
need to update it more, right?
I think that it would be great if we had somebody that could just do our social media full time.
That'd be great, yeah.
It would.
It's fascinating. And apparently the presidents of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau also, when you talk about nonprofits, everybody always wears a lot of hats. You obviously are the de facto PR person for the organization too, right? You go around and...
Well, we do have a PR person, Laura Saul, who does a great job for us, but really it's a tag team between she and I, actually, to make sure that we're getting the word out there.
The next big event that you guys are doing in the grand scheme of things, it's that gymnastics event that you were talking about?
That'll be in August.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
But then we have another large event called the Women of Faith that come to Hartford, and that's a religious group, but that's a very, very large group as well. But we have fun things too. I mean, we just did beach soccer in West Haven. We're working on doing that at Ocean Beach also coming up within this next year. We're doing something in sporting called Tough Mudder.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's big. It's sort of like a triathlon warrior
like
kind of a thing.
A 12-mile. How to kill yourself in one easy step, I think. But we're working on something like that.
Yeah.
The triathlon we help out with as well that comes here to Connecticut. So there are a lot of really different fun and unique events and that we're helping to put together.
And you're kind of just getting started, so only bigger and more exciting things to come, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Getting the word out.
One more time on the website so people can go to that and learn more.
It's ctmeetings.org.
I really hope that everything, you continue with all the success that you have, because I love, you hear about the big events, but those smaller things that you talked about, everything down to a small soccer game at a little field next to a high school in suburbia, Connecticut,
Right.
You want that to be successful too. So Michael Van Paris, president of the Connecticut Convention and Sports Bureau, pleasure having you on the show and meeting you.
It was a pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube site. In the meantime, I'm Sean Murphy. We will see you next time. Take care.